often when a woman expresses her desire to have a VBAC, she is met with a lot of misinformation. People telling her about how dangerous it is or what a low chance she has of actually having a VBAC, and often this is from people that have no experience in the birth world. They're not doctors. They have no idea what this woman's medical history is. People make big statements about VBACs. And so I want to equip you with accurate, evidence-based information about VBACs. So first off, according to a report published in the journal Obstetrics and Gynecology, a VBAC often decreases the risk of maternal mortality, the need for a hysterectomy, and complications in future pregnancies, because it helps women to avoid a major abdominal surgery, right? And this also lowers the risk of hemorrhage and infection after a surgery, and it significantly shortens the postpartum recovery period. It's a lot easier to recover from a vaginal birth than a C-section because, again, it is a major abdominal surgery. In addition, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they also affirm that a VBAC is a safe option for women that are a good candidate for a VBAC. And now I want to look into the specifics of this really interesting study that was published in 2004 in the New England Journal of Medicine. And this study took place at 19 different hospitals between the years 1999 and 2002. And it only included women who'd had a prior C-section and were now 20 weeks or more pregnant with a single baby. And so this is what they found. So 39% of the sample, they had, let me say this before I get into the specifics. So one more thing, 39% of the sample had a trial of labor after cesarean. So that's like a TOLAC, trying for that VBAC. And 73% of the women who attempted a VBAC did have a VBAC. And so these are the results from that. So 2.3% of the women who had a repeat C-section had a uterine rupture, while only 0.1% of the women who had a VBAC experienced a uterine rupture. 0.5% of the women who had a repeat C-section needed a hysterectomy after the birth, and only 1% of the women who had a VBAC needed a hysterectomy, which means that the uterus needs to be removed after birth. That is a hysterectomy. Next, they found that 3.2% of the women who had a repeat C-section needed a blood transfusion, while only 1.2% of women who had a VBAC needed that blood transfusion. And finally, 7.7% of the women who had a repeat C-section developed an infection, while only 1.2% of the women that had a VBAC developed an infection. And there was another study that examined the data from 203 studies on VBACs, and they found that the maternal mortality rate for women having an elective repeat C-section at full term was higher than for those trying or having a VBAC. So the rate was 9.6 deaths per 100,000 repeat C-sections, and 1.9 deaths per 100,000 trial of labor for vaginal birth. So in a nutshell, they found that it was a lot safer to try for a VBAC than elect to have another C-section for a lot of women. And it's also important to know, so we're looking at the baby a lot, or we're looking at the mom a lot, but now what about the baby, right? So these studies showed no difference in the APGAR scores and the rate of NICU admission for the babies of women who had a trial of labor after cesarean and those who had an elective repeat C-section. So they didn't really find much of a difference in the outcome for the babies, depending on what type of birth the mom tried for. But they did find that typically trying for that VBAC and being able to have that VBAC was a lot safer than that repeat C-section.